Good evening. Thank you all for joining me. My name's Dave. I'm a co-founder of DocSupport. I gave this presentation, crumbs, early part of this year with Matthew. We were good university friends, and then after that, we then decided to join forces and see what we can do with DocSupport. And it's some of those that we've been sort of developing and sort of using YouTube as sort of to our benefit, and we'll talk about that this evening as well. So let's chuck some questions in. So what we're going to do is going to do a brief introduction. We're going to talk about money because everyone wants to think that, YouTube is the biggest money pot, etc., etc. And, it's all the get quick rich schemes. The whole purpose of this evening is to actually add a bit more realities. I've been on YouTube now for 8 years, and sort of actually what works and what doesn't, in my opinion, and to give you hopefully some inspiration to really, I want you to do it yourselves because I'm sure if you've bothered to give up your time this evening, that you've either got an idea. It'd be great if you've got a business idea that you've already developed, but you want to expand onto YouTube, and then we sort of take it from there. We're going to sort of build then into the whys, how to create content that works, really what works, and then sort of the key to sort of audience building from that aspect. I've got a load of sort of bits around me. Apologies, I'm in my spare room, which will ultimately become the proper recording studio, but we'll take it from there. So, a bit about me. I'm do multiple roles. I describe myself basically as a patchwork GP, so I'm predominantly a GP partner. That's my main sort of as main sort of bit that we use. I also work with Hull York Medical School as associate director. I'm also a GP trainer, and all of these blend into each other. So, for example, as part of my associate director role, I actually offer a, offer a SSIP, so a special study project with regards to sort of getting on to making YouTube videos and educational videos for patients, which we're currently going through well at the moment. Because of my YouTube channel, initially called GP Templates, that then got me noticed locally in our federation. I've been offered the digital clinical lead role, and I currently run or help support multiple channels. I've got a practice channel with Eaglescliffe Medical Practice, I've got DocSupport, which was GP Templates, and also I've got a joking one, so PJ&A Trains, which is one that I do with my predominantly my son, but actually my daughters are getting into train nerdery as well, which is brilliant. So where we just muck about, take train videos, and sort of just chuck them on there. And believe it or not, that channel has some of the highest views in terms of short views, versus whatever we get in DocSupport predominantly, which is hilarious. Wife's a ED consultant, so we sort of juggle 3 kids and everything, and life is very, very busy. So sort of use it not as an excuse from that point. And we've got an excellent question. I'm going to come back onto your point about sort of LinkedIn because it is important, and I'll tell you why. What DocSupport does is that we're here to sort of support doctors during whatever journey they are. So I'm a GP trainer. We offer a GP registrar training package about sort of getting on with the AKT. We also do a lot of work with regards to digital optimization. So we've got a load of ebooks with regards to improving your System 1 access and sort of improving, getting the best out of that. Matthew comes from a primary care background, from a private background. So and he's set up his own ENT clinic. So he's a GP with specialist interest in ENT. He's done it all by himself. And more importantly, and why I love working with him, is that he's documented and sharing it. So we just done a webinar last week about getting into private practice. And we're not talking about giving up your day job and sort of getting onto that. More importantly, we're talking about whether could you make your own clinic that you do initially, say, once a week, that sort of thing, to just bring in a bit of extra cash, bring in an extra bit of joy to your life as well. So quiz time, right? Answering the Q&A. Financials. So from in the past 12 months, so, what are we now? November. So from November 24 to the November 25, how much money did I make from YouTube, as in the YouTube partnership program paying me directly? Give your answers now. You've got A, 0, B, and you've got all the range to F. So if you could shove it in the Q&A, that would be marvellous. Oh, Pete. Good to see you, Pete. Thank you for diving in. C, yep. F, marvellous. F, oh, Kelly, Sarah. B, oh, Rebecca. Oh, right. Yeah, Rebecca, you made my conference. E. God, we've got a lot of faith in the audience. Lovely to see. Hey, Matthew, good to see you. So, right. Hello. This is the key point. So in terms of DocSupport, GP templates, from YouTube itself, through the YouTube partnership program, we made zero. Okay. Technically, the DocSupport channel isn't monetized, and to get monetized, you have to hit certain things. So you have to have 1,000 new subscribers or 1,000 subscribers overall, and then you have to have 4,000 watch time hours in the past 12 months. So the rolling 12 months, so for now it would be November last year, you've got 4,000 hours worth of people watching your content, which is a huge milestone. So if you meet someone who's got a YouTube channel that's hit that, like, they represent, I think it's less than the top 5% of YouTube content creators. I think it might even be less than that. So it's absolutely, minuscule number of YouTube channels that actually hit it. You can do it through Shorts. So Shorts is YouTube's answer to TikTok. So think about your vertical format. Facebook's got them as well. So when you sort of scroll through, but with those, you have to get 10 million Shorts views, which is absolutely huge numbers, and to the point of almost impossible to hit. For context, given that we've got 2,100 subscribers at the moment, which is awesome, but our watch time hours are hovering around the 2,600 mark. So we're getting there, and it is growing, and I've got utmost faith that we will get to the monetized mark, but it's just going to take time. Okay. And it's going to take sort of that steady progress, and it's not an overnight success. Even when you do apply, even if you got the 4,000 watch time hours, the amount of money that you're going to get from the YouTube partnership program is very, very small, and not enough that you're going to suddenly, I'm going to quit my job and do everything else from that point. Okay. Even the bigger channels. So I was on Medics Money podcast about a month or so ago now, and I was chatting about YouTube. Even so, they've got obviously their podcast, but they've got a supporting YouTube channel. Considering how big and how massive Medics Money is, and fair play to them, they've got a YouTube channel that they set up relatively recently. It got monetized, and even Tommy was saying they only get about £1,000 worth of ad revenue from YouTube to them. And thinking about the size of them and what they offer, that actually that's clearly not enough to sustain their business. And so be very, very mindful in what you do about this if you are going to step into the YouTube space. So I'm going to ask a very similar question. Okay. So how much money do you think that we made due to YouTube in the past year? So similar question. So not from YouTube, but due to YouTube. Again, A to F. See who we're going for. Gotcha. So we got a couple of Fs, a C, an E. Marvelous. Now, this is the fun part. The answer's F. Okay. And what I mean by this is that, and the reason why I love YouTube and probably will never go back from it, and will always have some sort of presence, is that the number of opportunities that it brings has led to financial sort of impact. Okay. Now, what was interesting, that we sort of joined forces DocSupport back in sort of March of this year, and even off the back of that, it's funny to Matthew tell the same stories of, we get the same conversations that start off saying, I have seen your video on insert subject, would you be interested in this opportunity? Okay. Now, this is sort of what has fallen out for me personally is speaking engagements. So Morph, I put out a video with Red Whale, or putting my Red Whale application in. So for those who are not from a GP background, it's basically a professional educational platform, and they were looking for speakers. It was a job role that I'd love to do. Failed absolutely miserably at it. But what I did do is that I put my application, because they wanted a short video, on YouTube, and I thought, you know what, be a great opportunity, a great video just for interest. Video did okay, and then sort of like just pushed it out there from that point of view. What was interesting is then Morph, who's a pharmacy company, came back to me and said, actually, Dave, we've seen your video. Clearly you can teach. Would you like to come work for us? And they offer, I get ad hoc sort of sessions with them going down, and they pay for transport and accommodation, and deliver some teaching training from them. Last one that I did was down in Birmingham, talking about AI in general practice, which was just right up my street and really, really great. Likewise, Federation Role came about predominantly because they were looking for a nerd in the Northeast, and my name popped up predominantly because of the videos that we're pushing out, which is awesome. All of these have come to not needing a CV because effectively your channel and whatever you're going to push out becomes your online CV. And that's why I recommend that if you do anything, if you're going to step into this, make sure you're passionate about the project and about the subject, because people are going to, sort of gravitate towards your content. And if you're pushing something out, you need to be confident, or you need to be engaged enough to actually want to go and do it. So why do it? So it's fun, like creative outlet. I think this isn't really talked about there. I'm a 6 session GP partner. Like, there's not very much in my day to day that I can actually be creative and push something that I've done out there. Millionaire Fastlane is one. If you want to get your mindset about money, it's well worth a read. And the big strapline from that is about creating and not consuming, whether it be content or something, okay, and trying to sort of flick that mindset from that way. YouTube as well is the second largest search engine. And what's interesting as well is that, some of the videos that if you search, so for example, I did one on System One as electronic healthcare record about their auto filing or auto review rules. And if you Google that, some of my videos are the top videos that come through. YouTube Health is relatively new to sort of the social media space, and that's a specific group led by Dr. Virani, who I would implore you to follow on LinkedIn, with the specific aim to combat misinformation. Okay, so they're sort of there, you've got these large Google related companies trying to actually push your channel through, and they can give you a bit of a leg up from that way. Big question. We're talking about money. I'm going to talk about how much money that you need. And I had a really interesting one-to-one with someone who's saying like, oh, what kit and equipment that you need. And I was just like, and he was like, do I need this? Do I need that? Blah, blah, blah. So in terms of, everyone thinks, right, I need a good camera. The camera that me and Matthew record the majority of our content is on a webcam. So I'm on a MacBook that's a couple of years old now, and we record off that. As long as your lighting is good, and we'll talk about that, you can get away with it. The other video content that I use is an iPhone, basically. So, and that's the only cameras that I generally use. I have bought, and I'm going to be very honest with you, and I've got it here. I've got a very shiny, oh, what are you? EOS Canon 4000D, thinking like, yeah, I'm going to really take this seriously. The problem is, it's too complex, and I almost spend too much time trying to set it up, learn how to use it, to the point of actually it detracts from making good videos. So if you are going to start, I'm very much a key advocate of like, start low down, start really, really gritty with what you've got, to minimize the spend that you're going to do to sort of push out into this. Because you probably, if you bothered to join on this webinar, you've probably got all the kit and equipment you actually need. So if you are like, Dave, but I must spend some money, invest in audio first. So if you had the choice, go for something audio related first. So the microphone that I'm using in front of you is a Yeti mic. It's a fairly big, chunky. I've just knocked out the microphone. I won't move it again. So from that point, what will happen is that it's a big chunky microphone. You plug it in, absolutely brilliant. One that I was relatively only newly bought, which I would strongly recommend, is a DJI mini mic. So I'm going to show that up. That's just the microphone it comes with. The reason why I'd recommend this, not only does it come in a very stylish bag, is that it comes with a very, very small, compact microphone. And I've got just its little fuzzy hat on that you can clip and whatnot. And then more importantly, it's got a receiver, which you plug into the back of your phone. It's got USB-C, and these are about, so Yeti mic, you can normally get for about, say, 90 pounds, that sort of bit. These cost about 50 pounds. Absolutely brilliant. Really good sound quality, and then absolutely superb from that way. What I would strongly recommend is that you get a ring light. If you've got teenage daughters, sons, etc., who are big on TikTok, just rob theirs. Like, I would just raid Asda all the time for their cheap and nasty 20 quid ones. I've got a slightly better one at work where it's on an angle poised lamp, so that I can sort of move it and position it where I want to, but it's just a big ring that I can mount my phone in the middle of it on an angle poised lamp. Done. The reason why I've stuck up Canva is that everyone then goes into editing and like, what do I need? Do I need to do Adobe Express for all the thumbnails? Or do I need this weird and wonderful editor? And I was like, no, just use Canva. So for those who aren't aware, Canva is a social media tool that sort of allows you to push out very high quality, good looking content quite easily and quickly. Um, Canva basically is like PowerPoint on crack. So this PowerPoint was made by a phenomenal VA, and it's done on Canva. You can then do thumbnails on it. You can do videos on it where you can actually set it out in sort of little 5-second segments, record that, upload it. You can add different bits to the background, maybe add text, lighting, or sorry, text, different effects, other bits and pieces that are on there. And it just gives you the ability to very quickly and simply put a lot of things together. And whenever I say, and anyone asks me, like, where should I start? I say, just get a professional subscription to Canva. It's about 100 quid for the year. A lot of people who are setting out their businesses have already got a Canva subscription because it's so good at creating all the social media and digital marketing side. But just go into it and search for make a video and then sort of take it from there. So that's my sort of key rants on that one. And then really, well, I've had a rant about, so you can see there, just camera, ring light, don't go any more from that way. So how many? Okay, so this is Ali Abdal. He is rather huge on YouTube. He's an ex-Cambridge graduate, was a doctor, gave up his registration at the stage of F2 to then pursue his sort of side hustle and career. And he's got a massive, massive YouTube channel. And time again, people come back with like how many videos. He recommends, and I think this is really sage advice, one video a week, get to about 100 videos, and his quote is that it will change your life. And you know what? I don't disagree with that. I think if you're plugging out a video a week for a year, that's 50 videos. Certainly if you're coming at it from I'm assuming the majority are going to be from a clinical background, so certainly doctors, that actually, because you offer so much value that you don't quite realize, I think you're going to hit that sort of like that life-changing bit a lot sooner than you realized. My biggest joy this year, I think probably reflecting my GP trainer status, was that I managed to help out a phenomenal individual by the name of Ruth. So she's got a channel called Dr. Ruth's Wise Woman Wellbeing, and she was starting out, and I gave her a couple of hints and tips over LinkedIn, just chatting away, going blah blah, what do you think about this video? And she kept on posting with them, and she smashed it. It took a while. It took her about sort of 10-15 videos, but then she blew up, and she had one of her videos go viral, which now on last look has got about 250,000 views, and just absolutely took off. Her channel is pushing 20,000 subscribers, and she only started about March of this year. So it's just absolutely like hats off to her. She's absolutely smashed it. Though, the benefit for her is that she actually started and got on with it. We can sort of dive into that if you want to, about how I think she did it. So key steps for sort of like making your your key steps is in terms of your script, equipment, recording and editing, package, and then your promotion. So what we're going to break down a couple of these points. I've already covered equipment because that's a big thing that people sort of think is a big barrier in their mind. Recording and editing, like, this is, for me, if you're starting out, just get on Canva. Don't worry about it. Don't overthink it, and don't sort of overhype it. Just get recording and get it on there. Have a play around with it. You'll see that that's a page taken out from my book, Examination Couch to 5 videos. That's on the DocSupport website. If you go on ebooks, it's a tenner, and I would sort of put all of my info, just banged it on there. Just have a look at it from that way. Okay, script wise, phenomenal books. Please, if you're stepping into the space, you're going to need to read and sort of learn from others. And, we are constantly, so me and Matthew are constantly chucking books at each other, going like, read this one, read this one, read this one. A couple of books, and I've got some more next to me as well to have a look at. Show Your Work is the quickest and easiest book to read. Okay, it's about 100 pages, really big writing. But what it does is that it tries to go against the face of being British, is probably the best way I can put it, in the fact of that whatever you are doing, you're documenting it and then you're sharing with others. Okay, a lot of the time, we get this imposter syndrome. We think we have to be experts on this. But the answer is you only have to be a step ahead of someone else. Okay. So you just have to be confident to be like, look, I've done this, this, and this. And actually, just document it and share it out. Now, show your work will then sort of go into whether it doesn't necessarily talk about videos, it actually talks about whether it be a podcast, a newsletter, a blog, that sort of broader bit. But whatever you're doing, whatever you want to push out of it, make sure you're documenting it and that you're sharing it with others. I'm a real big fan of this because actually, even with a couple of videos, what it does put out is that you start generating the conversations around topics. So you take for auto review rules, for example, so very niche on system one. I've had a load of emails back saying like, really liked your video. Have you thought about doing it this way? Not in a negative or in a derogatory way, just in a very much like, thank you very much, but did you know you could probably do this a bit quicker and easier? The benefit of that is that then, I've had a couple of those emails. Those couple of emails I've had a play and gone like, oh yeah, that is a lot quicker. That becomes video number two, and so on and so on. The unfair advantage. I've got my copy in front of me just to prove that I got it. For a start, Ash Ali and Hassan Kuba, lovely people. I follow them on LinkedIn. I actually tagged them in on one of the posts. And they very kindly, very commented back. So if you're looking to set up your business, set up your YouTube channel, either one, both together, you need to read this book, because what it will do is that it will highlight for you what is your unfair advantage in terms of whatever situation you're in, to basically make life for you moving forward and progressing wherever that may be a lot easier. It breaks it down into what's called the Miles framework, and this is broken down into money, intelligence, insight, location, luck, education, expertise, and status. So, whatever, just picking out a couple of those, intelligence and insight, you as a clinician, you will have insight into a certain area. Okay. You can even break that down even further into, say, like how Ruth's done so well is that her channel specifically aims at postmenopausal women who want lifestyle advice. And guess what? She is a postmenopausal woman who's done some lifestyle medicine, education and coaching. And so her intelligence and insight into that area is really unique and special to her, or sort of like she's got the insight. Okay. And so she is playing that unfair advantage to make it so easy for her, which is brilliant. Because you could argue like there's nothing me stopping going out, setting up a YouTube channel to give, postmenopausal women lifestyle advice. But actually, that would require me to do a lot of reading to maybe, really try to empathize with this group that I don't know firsthand, because, I'm not even 40. And so how do I know what it feels like to go through the menopause, etc., etc., etc. So she's used that for her absolutely superb bit. So think about education expertise. Clinical, so you reflecting on where you've come from is going to make life a heck of a lot easier. And again, you can lean on your status as a doctor, and this we will caveat this in terms of like GMC, etc., that if you are going out onto YouTube or any sort of social media space, you are more reputable than the 20-year-old who's talking about moles. Okay. So the fact that you can do that is that you can play on that and you can lean on that as your unfair advantage. So for example, if there are two videos presented, one from Dr. David Hindmarsh about how to, manage your diabetes, and then one from some randomer who's set up their own YouTube channel, guess what? Chances are they're probably going to favor mine over someone else's. So we're going to talk a bit about buckets. And whenever I hear people stepping into like the entrepreneurial space and sort of setting up their initial business, is that you've got to think about the product that you're producing. And the same is true for videos. Okay. What you want to think about is that, and where a lot of, business people advice sort of, they say it's like, you've got to go so specific and so niche that it's sort of like it's very clear in what you're offering. Okay. And I would implore you to do exactly the same in terms of YouTube. Often what they'll talk about is, the reason why I got a bucket is that they'll call it a bucket of content. So I see some familiar faces or familiar names on the Q&A. So, if you haven't gone and searched out Jo Watkins, please do. She's a superb doctor in terms of the information that she gives out, in terms of if you want to step into the entrepreneurial space. And she's a massive advocate of just keeping it really, really simple in terms of your offering and where you're going. Okay. And what I mean by this in terms of bucket is that you need to start thinking about a series of videos that you are happy to create that the same sort of people would want to watch. So, for example, we initially, or GP Template started out with System 1 training videos. So these are training videos effectively for using electronic healthcare record. Okay. And it built up and we got sort of like, the channel grew and it started to naturally grow and sort of built up from that way. Now, we've got that sort of set out from that way. And it gets to a point, I'm not going to lie, is, you've got to enjoy what you're doing. It got a bit boring. So it's like, right, I've got that bucket of content. I'm happy. Okay. I'm going to move that to one side. I'm then going to think, well, hang on a second. Doctors are quite complex. I'm a GP trainer. I'd like to do a bucket of content about registrars and GP training and all that I've learned from that way. I did a series of videos, and we still do, in terms of like videos that sort of fit into that bucket. So if you're a GP trainer or in your training, there will be a series of videos that are useful for you to watch and for you to use as well. Okay. As I joined forces with Matthew, we've now got sort of like an entrepreneurial private practice bucket. Okay. With the idea being that all of these buckets are sort of like, you could, and you probably may be one of those doctors that could watch a bit from that because you're like, yeah, I'm on system one, that's really helpful. Or I've got a GP trainer or trainee in my practice, they might find that video useful. And then likewise, you're sort of getting into private practice, thought about it, not quite sure. All right, I'm going to go and watch Matthew's webinar that we've recorded and uploaded about it there. With the idea being that you're serving separate different audiences, okay, with these individual buckets, but you're very clear about what you're offering. Now, I would implore you, if you are stepping out, just pick one. Pick one, and you need to be pushing probably 30, 40, 50 videos in that one bucket before you move on, because it comes with a risk. There is a risk then your channel could become muddied if it's not in relation to a bucket that you already offer. So, for example, when we had this conversation, me and Matthew had this conversation a couple of months ago, in terms of like, and off the back of the webinar that I'd done with him, saying like, do we merge GP templates with DocSupport, as in like just cram it together, or do we keep it separate? And I sort of went, well, actually, our audience would probably find all of that content quite useful. Let's cram it together and see what happens. And the rest, they say, is history. So the benefit, if you have developed a business or developing a business idea, is that you should have already thought about what content your audience or your clients want to hear. And actually, you've done the work. Like, the only difference is that you've just got to start to speak about this and actually sort of push forward in terms of what you're going to do and what you offer. But if you haven't got that and you're starting afresh, think about who your audience is. Who do you want to speak to? Okay. And what do they want to hear? And that they is a real key point. The issue with YouTube and any social media, and I'm just as guilty as the next one, is that it can be a bit of an ego trip. The problem with that is that you need to be subjective, and you need to be thinking about your audience, not you. Okay, so one big bit of advice off the back of that is that if you are starting out your videos, do not put any introductions in. Or if you are going to do it, you put it in about 2/3 of the way through the video itself. The idea being that if I start the video like, hi, I'm Dave Hindmarsh, I run multiple this, I'm this, that, and the other, people are bored. Okay, people do not care. The reason why they click on that video is that they want to get some flavor, they want to get some value out of it. So your initial big tip, if you're starting out videos, to remove your ego, is that from the second that they click to the first bit of nugget of information that you give needs to be as short as possible. So that means no introductions, none of those flashy like, oh, DocSupport, where it flashes across the screen. You've probably seen them and they look awful. Just get rid of them. Okay. More importantly, just be yourself as well. And that works yourself in two ways. One, it's really easy to be yourself because you're not really putting anything on. And if you go into developing a business or someone emails you, they sort of get a flavor of who you are. And I'm going to show a picture from us at the RCGP conference, and it was funny how people sort of came up to us, had a chat, and were like, "Oh yeah, you're just like you're on your channel." I was like, "Yeah, because that's me, and it just makes life a lot easier from that way." Oh, sorry, my microphone again. I will stop kicking it. That's why I say just be careful with wired. Um, we've mentioned about GMC, and everyone gets a bit twitchy about this. Believe it or not, I've done a video on about GMC and social media, actually for GP trainees, because it cropped up on the AKT a couple of times. Um, just be careful when you sort of push into this space. And I would read GMC, just if you Google GMC and social media, they give very, very clear guidance in terms of what they recommend. In short, your professional standards don't change by being on social media. Um, you've got to maintain public trust, and if you're promoting something, just be very, very careful what it is. So if you're, say, going into lifestyle medicine and you're trying to push a product onto someone else, and you want to try and sell something, just be very careful in terms of what you're promoting. Whether has it got an evidence base behind it? Is it scientifically regulated? Does it need to be prescribed? Those sort of bits in your mind. Again, it boils down to sort of being honest and trustworthy. So if you are getting sponsored, make sure that you document it, and that you sort of like that you talk about it, and that you have any medical disclaimers. So if you're giving general advice, then make sure that you put a medical disclaimer in there. Now, interestingly, I think I'll talk about medical disclaimers on the next one. I think medical disclaimers would be a great way of actually creating your people who are watching you to then go and engage with whatever service. So, for example, you've set up a HRT clinic. You're giving general advice about testosterone and whether you need it or not. And then you would need to put a disclaimer in saying like, look, this is just general advice about testosterone and use in women and HRT. Obviously, I can't give individual advice, comma. If you want individual advice, please email me. See my email below, and then we can have a chat through. We can give you personalized care, and then you end up inadvertently just pushing them towards, hopefully, getting something from you. Indemnity wise, again, sort of just be very careful. I always think about, like, in terms of where YouTube's useful is that it will come with a description. And I will put sort of thinking about like, right, what's the worst case scenario? So for example, I run a practice YouTube account. I will always put like, if you come from a different one, contact your GP or contact your individual practice, and I'll put the NHS links in there. And if you are going to script around NHS resources, is basically what I would look at is making sure that you can reference every line and everything that you say or claim. Okay. Now, you would argue, and I've had this discussion with another client, was that actually what she wanted to do was push about the low carb and diabetes control. And I was like, brilliant, love it. I do it myself. But what I'd do is make sure that if you are steering clear, that you say this is not really against, some of this is not against or with NHS advice or what they recommend from a healthy plate perspective, but here's the evidence. And if you are going to say here's the evidence, I would honestly get onto PubMed, copy and paste the abstract or like the title with it, so it looks like, so that if someone goes and has a look and sees what you're talking about, they can go read the journal themselves and then come back at you. Dr. IDZ, is a phenomenal content creator. I think he's on Facebook and on YouTube as well. He does this brilliantly, where he will go through an article and just tear it apart. But actually what's great is that he presents the article to you and then pitches it at a very sort of, very easy and accessible level. Okay. And again, this sort of like might get around of, if you've got any questions, please contact the practice. Okay. So there was a question about LinkedIn right at the beginning. Now, this comes towards the promotion. I would always, always suggest, if you're just posting videos on YouTube, certainly at the beginning, I'm really sorry, I love you dearly, but you're not going to go anywhere, or you're unlikely to go anywhere fast. You need to be adding value to someone else. Okay. The easiest thing to add value to is another group. Okay. And you'll get to a point where you're saying like, right, okay, so I'm on a System 1 Facebook group. If I've learned how to do something, I'll then post that video in that Facebook group, and that will drive up views. Okay. Likewise, I'm on a GP Partners group. If I've done something, for example, NHS ratings and review has gone, which means that everyone needed a Google business account or to get their ratings and reviews. Guess what? I've done a video on how to do that. Put that video on there. What will happen is that you'll get to a point where you are adding value to that group. You're not saying, watch my video. You're doing like, no, I'm trying to help you by answering your question. And it's that sort of that subtle bit. So if you're adding value to that individual in the group or answering those questions, then you're going to sort of like, you're going to win, in my opinion. If you're doing newsletters as well, like newsletters to me are just a script that you just need to record. I mean, there are some amazing newsletters going out. And if you've already building your own organic audience, do both. Like post the newsletter and then just read it out as your script and as your video. Done. LinkedIn posts, this is an example of one. You know, me and Matthew will put these out all the time. They're sort of saying like, yeah, we've done this, and actually, you know, I've done a video about this, and actually, like, here's the video below, and you just use the LinkedIn post as a couple of points to sort of all really sort of like getting people interested in what you're talking about, and then say, look, if you're interested about this, watch the full video below. Marvelous stuff. So again, sort of like the biggest lessons and why Ruth, and you know, why people do succeed with any of this is what I call the 3 C's. Okay. Is sort of the one, commitment, okay, to learning, to improving, etc., etc. Atomic Habits teaches us that we need to improve by 1%, and that will sort of compound over time. The consistency as well, I would recommend initially that you put out one long form video a week and that's it. Okay. Don't beat yourself up if this isn't possible. You know, you've all got busy lives, jobs, kids, families, etc., everything. But if you can do that on a consistent basis, then actually sort of like you will be able to sort of, you'll see the gains from it. Okay. It's not going to be quick. It's not going to be easy, but you just need to sort of get into that rate and rhythm for it. Compounding, okay, what will happen is that what the joy of YouTube is that it doesn't get rid of your old content like Facebook, TikTok, etc., is that it will sit there, okay. And what you'll find is, and what I hope it happens to you as it has happened to me and Matthew, is that effectively you'll get to people saying, oh yeah, I saw your video, and you're like, that video was old, like really old, but you will have this quiet audience who will slowly build up. Okay. The judgment as well, and the fear is, and I sort of pulled up a couple of books and whatnot. And I remember when Matthew delivered this session, he said, like, how do you get over this? There is a fear element to this. Okay. I still judge myself on like some of the content I produce. But you know, I would strongly recommend, like, I've got a book here, Courage is Calling, but actually that focuses around the philosophy of Stoicism. And you realize that like people thousands of years ago, predominantly in the Roman era, have already been through what you're going through, in admittedly in a slightly different way, and just talking about the philosophy of pushing into that really unnervy, horrible fear element of it. So just do it. So that's, you know, I've rattled through that as quick as I can do. Please, please, please go and check out the DocSupport website. That's www.docsupport.co.uk. Load of things with that. You know, we've got ebooks on there, which would be useful to do, to have a look at that. Okay. We do offer sort of like, you can have a quick chat with us, or if not, you can go through, we do an hour sort of power hour sessions. We do offer a mentorship program if you really want someone to help hold your hand throughout this. We've got a couple of webinars popping up. I'll put that up at the end, okay? Because really, I want to go to your questions.